Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which was named by Poets and Writers a best book for writers. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, and I'm so happy to have Krishan Trotman with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I want to tell you a little bit about Krishan. She's a self-described Beyoncé of books and spent the past 15 years publishing works by and about multicultural voices and social justice. In 2020, she started Hachette's Legacy Lit imprint to focus on works by writers of color. Recent Legacy Lit titles include Undiplomatic by former White House Social Secretary Deisha Dyer and Madness, a New York Times editor's pick by Antonia Hilton. When Trotman spoke to the New York Times for a February 2024 article about the ongoing lack of diversity in publishing, she was one of only 2 Black publishers at Hachette. It has been harder for brown folks in publishing to find mentors at the executive level, she told the Times. Trotman co-authored the Queens of Renaissance book series released in 2020, celebrating 4 of Congress's most beloved boss ladies, Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Welcome to the program, Krishan.
Thank you.
We have so much to talk about. You were a keynote for the AHA virtual conference and had such great info. And I was the ending fireside chat keynote session with Abigail Thomas. And so you were the beginning, we were the end, and it was great in between. So you talk a lot about the idea of partnering with your publisher. And I think that's so important, especially for people who are first maybe working with a publisher or want to understand, because a lot of people think, that the publisher has all the power, sort of like Mount Olympus, and then just kind of contract within themselves and don't ask for what they need, or B, think that they can make decisions way above what they're supposed to do in the relationship. So maybe you can set up with what has worked for you, obviously, with your imprint at Hachette, and how writers can understand the whole process.
Yeah, sometimes I have people that are interested in writing, and they'll ask me things like, well, what if I don't like my cover? Like, who has the say in that? And I think that says a lot about what people think publishing is. First of all, the best mentality to understand about publishing is that we're all in this together. So if you go into it like a us versus them thing, you're just not going to have a great experience. No one in publishing is going to force you to do anything. Why? I mean, one of the major reasons is they have so many other books to publish. So if it's like a war of some kind, they're just going to let you win and do the book that you want. And it's about whether then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They're going to move on to the next book. They have to move on to the next book.
Yes.
So the best understanding of publishing is to understand that it's a partnership. When you sign your contract, most things you'll see is mutually agreed on. So the title, the cover, mutual agreement. That shows how collaborative publishing is. It's not like publisher has approval. Like some things the publisher should have approval over, like pub date and everything like that. But publishing on a day to day is having conversation with the author about everything. So they will say, hey, this is the pub date that we were thinking about. It ties into this holiday or it ties into this theme in your book. What do you think? And you do have the opportunity to say, I think this is a better idea because of this reason. And they might say, oh, okay. If they don't, the goal is to come to a mutual agreement again. So going into publishing with that mentality, understanding that your editor and your publisher are there to compromise and work with you and not against you. Going in and understanding that they could have easily said no to your book and given somebody else an opportunity. I'm not saying that you should be grateful like the whole time, but I mean, going with that sort of small, grateful mentality, like, thank you for letting me be here. I just mean that understand that these people believe in you. If you can go in with an understanding that they believe in you, they took a bet on you, they paid you in advance to publish this book. There's like a million people out there they could have taken this chance on, but they took it on you. Then understanding like this is your team. These are your people. These are people that want you to win. They want you to succeed. And your conversations with them should be from that mindset and not the sort of, oh, how am I going to get what I want? Are you going to make me do what you want? They don't really care about making you do what they do want is to profit and for you to have a nice experience and for you to be someone that is successful.
So the idea is that you're already selecting them, so they have something to bring to the table. And now you're going to work together. And it's like a team feeling. Like when I
Right.
worked with New World Library for my book, Writing That Gets Noticed, what I did, I tried to do things proactively. And tell me if you think this works. So when they said, we're coming up with cover ideas, do you have any suggestions? I did. I found like covers of books that I thought I liked, and I said the elements of what I liked and why I thought it would work for mine. Now, I didn't say this is my final decision. I just said, what do you think? And they came back, they appreciated that. And then they came back with, something different, but it was a dialogue. And
Right.
I always say if a writer is asked by the publisher, what do you think? You have to say what you think. You should
Yeah.
you should give what do you think about that?
I think the publisher and the publishing team, they cannot do their job without knowing what you think. So, one, they need you to be someone who, it can make decisions also because sometimes with covers, especially people will be like, oh, but can I see it in this way and then that way? And then I want to see like 20 covers. It's like, no, we have to make a decision. We're working towards a decision. So you have to respect the idea that they are trying to get you to a place of decision. And you also have to share your ideas to help everybody get to that place of decision. So if you're just like, I don't know, but they don't know what you don't like about it or what you actually like. I get into it, I get into situations with some authors who they can tell me everything that they don't want. Everything. It's just like pages and pages of what they don't like. And I'm just like, that is great that you're clear about what you don't like. But what is going to be helpful for us to get to a decision place is to know more about what you do like. I think that is some very important to working with to helping your publishing team have your perspective is they want to know what works for you, what makes you excited. So even on the publicity and marketing front, if you don't if you like, I have had authors come in and they say, I really like being in community with people. I really like talking to groups of people. So they're not so that's great for the publishing team to know. The publicist will then put you in like forum type of setups. Or if you're doing a bookstore event, they'll have you in conversation with somebody else because that's what you like. You're not like a professor who wants to do a lecture. And, if that's something that's important to you and you share it with them, they're going to be happy that you share that because they want you to have a good experience because that way you're able to be comfortable and sell your book better because you are in a forum setting that you like and then you'll be more relaxed and engaged. So that would be good for them to know.
Wow. And so you have such an interesting story yourself. You wrote a proposal for an imprint and just, it was so good that it was accepted.
Right.
And before that, you're somebody who knows what you want. And even with naysayers around you, you go for what you think might work. And
Yeah.
maybe you don't always know, but you try to gather the right people around you. And I think that's a good microcosm for people to use for their own lives. Your attitude and how you've continuously, like you, for your first book, well, you pitched a series. Right?
Right. I'm always doing like stuff that I think is inappropriate. It works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you're somebody, I suspect you have a lot of goals and you just kind of make your incremental steps and
Right.
continue building your village. And it probably is very inspiring for authors to be around you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love being part of the village and I love people being part of my village. And it doesn't matter what seat I sit in, whether I'm an author or a publisher or a friend or a parent. Like I'm rooting for you, you're rooting for me. I'm giving you all I got. Like some of my authors like to comment that I'm their manager or something because I'll be like, wow, you should do a reel so you can get on TV. Today's show. Like I don't the good thing about me, I think as a publishing partner is like I'll pick you up and never let you go. Like it's just like I'm rooting for you. I will still be in the stands long after the book is published. Because I really believe in you and I want you to win. And I find that our imprint is very successful because our authors do the same for us. So if they know we're publishing about a book, they will galvanize and be like, Krishan, what can I do to help that author? They'll be in the author's DMs or on their Instagram or social media. It's like, hooray, good for you. Like when there's somebody's doing a good job or they like something, they'll have each other on their podcast. And I just think that that is what we need in general as humans. We need to feel support.
Yeah.
And if we could bring that into our love and our passion for writing and also our work, as a publisher, then I think that just makes the world and the days better. So I try to be that for other people, and I really appreciate that one, and like yourself, or that for me, by inviting me on the podcast and everything.
Well, I'm so glad that we connected, online and now. So I mean, legacy lit is to bring social change into the world, right? So when you talk about the diversity in legacy lit, it's not just BIPOC, right? Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that?
I've been talking about this all week because I just think that when people hear diversity, they immediately think Black people because we are on the front lines. We have been on the front lines fighting for diversity for decades. And the conversation around it is now shifting and changing in ways that some things we don't agree with. But at the end of the day, it means everybody. And I really wanted to create an imprint that can basically just be real, which is we live in a diverse world. Why do we only have like certain kind of writers and talent showing up on these bestseller lists and everywhere? So the goal of Legacy is to publish diverse authors and to publish them in a big way. And our authors are from all different backgrounds, but at the same time, we are not unapologetic that BIPOC authors have not been uplifted in the way that they should be. And it is a huge part of our mission to make sure that they are at the forefront of everything that we do. So I think it's really easy to understand. The hard part about it is like getting past people's biases. So there'll be some books and people will be like, why is that a legacy lit author? He's not BIPOC. And I'm like, it's just a legacy lit book. I mean, we do all types of books. We do diverse authors. So my goal is to do whatever we want and all types of authors that we want and to be a Black publisher, like identify as Black, and I can do a white author, I can do Native American, I can do whatever I want and still show up as a leader. And I want the same for my authors especially those who are BIPOC, especially women, to have a bigger voice, because sometimes we get pushed to the back. A lot of experts, male centered leadership. We need more women to come up. We just tried to put in a woman president, it didn't work again. But like I try to just use my day job and uplift those voices and like have us live in different spaces so we can be seen as the norm. I want my authors, I want to see more Black authors in the self-help space being read by everybody widely. Those are the goals of mine, just to sort of normalize who we are, as normalize our humanity. Like, we are experts in fields. It should not be hard for certain people to find a financial guru or a relationship guru that looks like them and that can speak to their culture and their experience.
Beautiful. How do you find your authors? Like, are some of them come to you through agents. Do others come without agents? Or do you find people and they don't have agents, but you help them acquire an agent?
Yeah, I do things, I have to do things pretty differently. Because of the biases that float around me that I'm very much aware of, I find a lot of people in my team, we are constantly thinking of ideas. We are constantly identifying people or identifying topics that we think there's a market for, going after them, or just being inspired. Like, one of my authors, I saw her do a story on NBC. Her name's Antonia Hilton, and she was just so, I mean, the way she was able to tell this story was about housing or something. Like, it stopped me in my tracks, and my sister, who we are very different people. But we were both invested in that news story she told. And I was like, this journalist, she's such a good storyteller. I have to contact her. So I contacted her, and then she said, "Yeah, I've always had this other book idea about this place in Crownsville, this it's a Solomon Crownsville." And then I loved that idea. And then we went into this together. She's a great writer. And I was right. I mean, it's a beautiful book. It's going to win awards. It's already been nominated. It's a New York Times bestseller. And it started there. It started with me just understanding that I had found a great storyteller.
What is it called, the book?
Madness by Antonia Hilton. The title is Madness, Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you found her.
Right.
She didn't have an agent, or she did.
She did not have an agent. I found her, and I matched her with a wonderful literary agent to help her put together the book proposal. And then I acquired the book.
Amazing. So it happens. I mean, I'm sure it's rare, but you have your antenna out. You have that spidey sense. Oh, this will work.
Yes, exactly.
How did you get that spidey sense? Did you always have it?
Yeah, I love the spidey sense thing, because it's true. I just think we develop a muscle. Like, I feel like I could put together a book in my sleep. Like, sometimes I have an editor turned author who, he was say, Krishan, like, we can sit in a room with somebody. We can get out of that room within an hour and have a whole book, because that's how much I built the muscle. Or
Yeah.
identifying, like, what is it that you really want to write, and learning how to like pull it out of you. Like, what are you really excited about? Like, intellectually, you're saying this, but what is it that you really want? Like, what do you really care about? I think starting from those places always gets me where I want to go with people. And then that's when we get to what the book is. Like, once we start getting out of sort of the intellectualizing, that's all great. But then we have to, in order to find a really great book, you got to dig deeper. And I will spend time with them doing that. And eventually we get to something. I mean, one of my editors and I, this book that's publishing called A More Perfect Party by Juanita Tolliver, it's publishing in January. It sort of happened like that. She had a book proposal. She's a fantastic journalist, had a book proposal. She came in to meet with us. We were like, oh, this is kind of flat. I don't even remember what the original book was about. Then we started talking about what she's excited about. And then she was like, Diane Carroll threw this party for Shirley Chisholm. And we were like, ooh, what was that like? This is what the book is about. It's called A More Perfect Party. And then it became a book. By the time we got out of that meeting, we had a great book idea that all three of us were excited about.
That's amazing. And she came in, had no idea that that's what was going to be I love that.
Yeah.
And so you cover mostly nonfiction. for Legacy Lit, but did I hear you say that you were going to have a fiction
Oh,
area?
yes. We are so excited about our fiction list. We are publishing our first novel in June 2025 called The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery. I'm really happy not doing fiction because I don't have to remember subtitles. It's just like in nonfiction, I was like, oh God, do I remember the subtitle? But Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery, this also came together from an idea. An editor who works with us all the time. He was sort of my right hand person that helps with Legacy Lit books. So we knew him very well. He's basically part of the team. He said, Krishan, I have this great idea for you for a novel. And it was, it sort of combines so many wonderful components. It's an Afro Latinx protagonist, and it's sexy, it's scary. It's sort of, I describe it as like Tia Williams, who's a romance author, meets Ghostbusters. It's fun, it's your perfect beach read. So I was like, yeah, this is great. And so now we're here, and he's publishing this in June 2025. It's our first book. And we have the beautiful cover. The whole company is very excited about it. So it's been such a fun ride.
And how many, but so for Legacy Lit, you publish 15 books a year.
Yeah.
What about for the fiction? What will you
We're
publish?
probably going to do like, we'll start out with maybe one in every season. I want to be very selective about it. And since we're only doing like one in every season, we're sticking with BIPOC fiction authors because we want to create more space for them in the marketplace. But who knows? Maybe we'll get tons more in than one. Maybe we'll just love more than one. There's no hard, fast rule. But currently, my mindset is one per season, and we have 3 seasons at Hachette.
Great. Well, Hachette is a big company. How does it work being an imprint, a fairly new, but doing very well imprint in a big company like that?
I love it. It's like you're in the big house and like you have your own floor. Like, I mean, and everyone, you still have everything that comes with the big house. And like you have your own floor. So it's very exciting. Like, what is your floor gonna be like? So we have that sort of mentality where we really own our space at Legacy Lit, very clear about our mission, very clear about our goals every year and our goals per title. Very clear in terms of with the larger company about what's important to us and what we're doing and keeping them abreast to everything that we're doing. We're operating in a high functioning, big environment, but we can do it with like a lot of clarity and a lot of precision that it is definitely an opportunity for any author to work with us because we're highly focused on a certain amount of books each season. So if we do 15 a year, that means how many we doing? Like we're usually doing no more than 4 per season. So every single person on that list has Legacy's intense focus on them and shepherding their book out into the world. And also making sure that we're using the resources of the whole company on them.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty about having an imprint. I have been an editor, and it's great to be an editor, but you're sort of like in this generalized unit. You're just like one person in the whole house. You can do your job well. You can still, do the same things, but it's different when you have a whole group that
Yes.
is on the same mission and operating with the same focus to support you. So I think authors are very lucky at Legacy for that.
What do you think about what's going on in publishing? I mean, magazine publishing is being decimated as we speak. They are attributing it to AI because a lot of these publishers have formed relationships with AI. I'm still analyzing that, but I think there's a sea change happening. I predicted that on my podcast a while ago. I'm a veteran, a magazine editor from like back in the day in the 90s and early aughts. But
Okay.
I think that is it going to come to book publishing?
I think it is. Yeah. I think it is, but I'm deeply like the books that we do at Legacy are narrative driven. So we are very into narrative, very much into editing and getting it right on the page. Those are the sort of things that I don't think that AI can do, that I don't think that writers should be feeling competitive with. I mean, there's other uses for AI that I think that publishing can find helpful, but there's nothing, with books, that human touch means a lot, that like personal connection. Like that is something that I don't think that AI can do very well. And I think that only like good writers can do. So
I agree
I
there.
don't really see it as something to worry about. I do miss magazine publishing. I do miss the ability to like turn the pages of the magazine. I found that with magazines, like I was able to dream, just very loosely. Like with books, you're just kind of like really focused in.
Right.
But magazines, it just took you through a lot of feelings, like whatever magazine you picked up. I just found it to be like a resource for dreaming or inspiration.
That's a great way of looking at it, Prashant. It was like inspirational. It kind
Right.
of, you just sit there. I used to get like 20 magazines sent to me, and that day is, yeah, now it's like the worn ones in the doctor's office that are usually from like a medical, health company. And
I mean, the colors, everything was just the way you could see someone put together their work. It's just not the same to me on, screen, like, reading the New York Times or looking at the magazines. Not the
it's
same.
so
Yeah.
true. And what about at the US Book Show? They said that audiobooks are going through the roof. I was so happy to, after almost a year after my book was out, I had an audiobook. So it was wonderful.
Oh, good. I think audiobooks are fantastic because they have so many more people reading. And people always still ask me, is that, I mean, I read audiobooks, but is that really reading? I'm like, yes, that is reading. Literally, that is reading. I mean, for me, when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm seeing words, like I'm still like absorbing in a different way than I would like when I'm watching a movie or something. Intellectual stimulation to me is if we can just how whatever form you want to get it in, but if you're getting that on a regular basis, it's keeping you healthy, it's keeping you young, your brain growing. So that's why I'm really happy about audio because it gets people reading and growing intellectually because that was the worry, in terms of that all slowing down. That's what we get from books. We get inspiration, we get mental stimulation and in a different way than film can. You dive deep into a subject, you dive deep into a life, and you just have different experiences in narrative than you would in storytelling on a screen. I'm really happy about it. Some of our books sell like will if same amount of books in hardcover, same amount in audio. And some books will, depending on the author, like if they have an online platform, it will sell a little better in audio. But I usually find that they're aligned. So people are buying both, you know.
At the same time,
Yeah.
or oh,
And some
interesting.
people will listen to the audio and then buy the book if they like it, like because they want to have it.
It's like the
You know,
sample, right? And then they want
yeah.
the tangible. That's really interesting. Do your authors automatically have an audiobook when they, get the deal, or is it something comes later?
What I see right now is most books are made into the audiobook. I think audio is still figuring out in terms of company labor and resources how to do it. But yeah, most of my books at Legacy, because it makes sense because we're narrative driven books, are do become audio. Whether the author reads it or not really depends on why they're reading it. Like should the author read the book because they are a professional, like they have a show, like you, a podcast, or like people want to hear their voice, like they're a celebrity, they do films, people like their voice. But if it's like a history book, like does the author really need to read it? Do people really need to, and they don't even know who that author is? Or should we get a professional narrator? So those are the decisions, and those are the things that people should be smart about. Because some people push to read their own book at the authors, but it's laborious. It takes a long time. Like you're trapped in this little room. There's nothing like cute and sexy about it. And
Yes.
people's voice, like, people like really have issues with their voice after reading for that length of time. And are you selling? You have to think about whether your voice is actually selling a book. Because you want your book to sell. So, are you the best narrator, or should you just let them hire a narrator? And now they have so many great narrators, people on Broadway, like fantastic people. For my audiobook, I was shocked by the list of talent they sent to narrate it. I was like, wow, I didn't know that they like, ooh. So yeah,
I'm
I
so
think
glad you're bringing that up because originally I wanted to narrate my whole book and so I wanted to audition for it. So I did. It took so long to get the tape right. And I had studied acting and
oh
voice
wow.
and all that, but I finally did it. And then my publisher was like, well, why don't you just try one more time before you send it? So I did it again and I sent it. And they came back and it took so long. It took like 20 hours to do like one chapter.
My God.
And it came and I was thinking, oh God. So they got back and they said, well, here's the thing. They liked your voice, but to do the intro and we're going to get a professional. And I was like, thank God. You never when your bad luck is your good luck. Cause I
Right.
wouldn't have wanted to do that 20 plus talking,
Exactly. Yeah. I always tell them, I love when authors are just like, no, I will not read that on the I'm like, you're a
It's,
smart
you
person.
really need a professional, especially with like some of these really complicated, mine's a writing book, so there's like really complicated things in it. So if somebody wants to get your attention to be in legacy lit, what do they need to do to rise to that level where you will think, huh, they could possibly be good for me, vice
Wow.
versa?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you really have to have a good idea, and it really has to have a level of clarity in what the idea is and also its execution. So whether it's a novel or it's a nonfiction book, like people have to be able to get it quickly. Like it should be so clear that if even if you didn't send it to me, you weren't there to explain it to me, that I could understand it. Like I would read a novel and I'm like, ooh, I know what this is
Like
about.
an elevator pitch, like a
Yeah,
quick,
like it's just very easy and
yeah.
accessible. That is important because that is what I would need or an editor would need when they take it in to acquire it and talk to the company about it. Because
Yeah.
you won't be there. So you won't be able to be like, well, that character did that because, no, they just, they're reading it, you're not there. And the same thing happens when it gets published. You won't be there with every reader to explain all of that. Also, when you approach editors, if you don't have an agent, you really have to approach it with a level of humility and understanding that this person is a human and then you should interact with them like that. Because
Yeah.
sometimes people like I can tell there's a copy and paste in my DM from some cover letter they wrote. I can't respond to that. Like, you didn't put in the time to communicate with me. I can't put in the time to communicate back because it's just like, okay, like how many people did you send this to? I don't even know. Like this is very robotic. But I
Right.
have had some people who send very professional notes. I'm seeking a publisher. This is what my book is about. I know this is not the usual way this is done. Could you give me some advice or whatever? And sometimes I give them advice. Sometimes if it's good, I might even say, like, here's my email. Let's talk about it. But you have to know what you're doing in terms of have you done your homework on book publishing? Have you taken a class? Because then you would know like what they're looking for. And you probably would know that's not even the way to do it, that you should get an agent. The agents have guidelines in terms of submitting to them. But at the same time, sometimes you just got to shoot your shot, but you want to know how to do it. Like you want to, package it right. The idea, who you are, why you're the right person to write it.
There's so many
There's so many.
resources
They
they
should
could
get your
find
book.
online. Yeah.
Yeah, they should get your book. They should have read all your book, other books out there. There's coaches out there who can coach you about creating a book proposal and pitching yourself to agents. So I just think knowing that you have had this level of knowledge is going to make you stronger. And if you have a clear idea that people can respond to, they know what the book is about very clearly, they know who you are, then you never know where that can get you. But those are the two things that I think you really need to have.
And what about in terms of, back I don't know, 7 years ago, it was a big deal to have a big social media following. And what happened is it translated into not this many sales for the people who had the people following them. It didn't really translate. So now publishers are looking at other aspects of what a person brings to the table. And what would some of those aspects be?
Yeah, I think that is such a relief because at one point everybody was frantic, like, "Oh my god, my social media is not picking up." So now it's like, okay, there's other things that they look at. That's fantastic. I think knowing that you have a way to sell your book. So it goes back to the partnership. You can't go into book publishing thinking they're going to publish my book and then I'm going to become a superstar and that's that. It's they're publishing your book. It's a launch. They have a launch for your book. Lasts like a couple of weeks, maybe for like a couple of months. But your job is to take it over from there. You How are you going to continue to talk about your book so it's selling forever and ever? If you're not talking about your book, if you're not like doing things so people still know about your book, it's just going to go away because there's so many other books that's publishing. So authors that have created vehicles, like they've become sort of a media person where they're doing interviews, they use their social media, they have a newsletter that they created that continues to grow, or they're a coach and they have, certain communities that they get together with annually or, every monthly or something that can help keep shepherding this book out. You have to have some sort of vehicle machine behind you to help the publishers sell your book. Like it's a partnership. Like you also are a salesperson. So understanding that is super important.
I agree. You can't rely. The days when the publisher did everything and the author just sat back, here's
Yeah.
my work.
Yeah.
Okay, where am I going? Where are you sending me? Those days are gone. Maybe if you're Stephen King.
Some of the authors we think, they're made it, they're still struggling. They have to keep those numbers up, else they won't get
Yes.
paid the same amount of money. They have their struggles, just like the regular normal people like us.
I think your understanding and the way that you communicate, it's a business. I mean, you have to look at it as a business. And if you have that perspective and you realize that everyone's there to sell books. And
Right.
so how are you going to help support in terms of the partnership? How are you going to help support the publisher to sell your book? And then, then everybody can kind of work together. I love what you're doing. It's been such a pleasure. Is there anything you want to share that I didn't ask you?
No, I would love if you and your community could support us by following our Instagram and Facebook. The handle is at Legacy Lit LIT Books, and support us that way. And you can also follow me at Krishan Trotman. Becoming part of our community is what is actually the key to our success, like I said. So if there's any way that you or any of your listeners could just support by becoming part of our community, telling other people about our books that you find interesting, even letting us know, tag us, or we love to see stuff like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Krishan, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Follow me at estelleserasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.